This marks the first season since 2002. Okay, we're talking 21 years. First season since 2002 in which Alabama, LSU, and Florida have an L by the end of week 2. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit the red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also, the like button too, and comment and follow on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, another great week of college football in the books. Now, you guys know, if you've ever been here before, you know how I kind of rail against, mid-September on into early October college football, because a lot of those, typically the really cool non-conference games happen early, and then there's a couple of weird games, and then they put conference play later on in October and November. However, we've seen some really good games, a lot of inter-conference matchups right now, and the class in terms of national championships of college football, the SEC, has, it's a good way of putting it here, let's just say they've had a rough start to the season so far. They have had lots of key losses, and especially from big-time programs. We want to talk about that really quickly here, because there has been multiple games where the SEC gone into it, might maybe have a chance, maybe not, and ultimately did not pull it through. The SEC is off to a slow start for 2023. So I'm in an article here on ESPN, and this absolutely highlights what is going on at this point. So this article continues here. It says the SEC has 6 non-conference losses in 2 weeks already, including 4 to the ACC. And he says right here, though, if Commissioner Greg Sankey just wants to expand and add North Carolina, Florida State, Miami, and Wake Forest, we can chalk it up to the grind of a tough SEC schedule. Unfortunately, you can't at this point. That has not happened right now. According to ESPN stats and information, this marks the first season since 2002. Okay, we're talking 21 years. First season since 2002 in which Alabama, LSU, and Florida have an L by the end of week 2. And we start off here with one that last season, remember the Utah Utes coming in there, top-ranked team play at the Florida Gators. Florida eventually ended up with a losing record, but they won that week 1 matchup. And again, I remember Joel Klatt said that Utah needs to win this game and win it decisively in order to show the fact that they belong with the top tiers of college football. Again, the SEC, again, the fact that Florida Gators, despite the fact they had a losing record, they still beat one of the top teams, the top team in the Pac-12. Well, this season right now that we're in, they did not. And again, think about this right here. This was with the starting quarterback for the Utah Utes was out. They had Bryson Barnes in the game, Nate Johnson in the game. You didn't see any of Cam Rising in this game, and they were still able to, it was a pretty physical matchup. You could definitely tell that the Utah Utes were the better football team. They were more the complete team. This game was in Salt Lake. And again, if you check the stat line out here, it was very, very clear which team was the more physical team. Again, you see Utah, they didn't run the ball very well. 30 carries for 105, 3.5 yards per carry. That's not very good stats. But it's exponentially better than what you see over here. 21 carries, 13 yards, 0.6 yards per rush. It had 333 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, 32 QBR. So you can see the fact that they were definitively outplayed. This is one of the first losses. Now, I know what you're saying. Florida is not a top-flight program right now in the SEC, so that's not a big situation. What about our dear friends, the South Carolina Gamecocks? Again, they had a big win last season. They beat Tennessee. They had a good run at the end of the season. How they do against North Carolina, same situation. Now, this one's a little bit different here. The Duke's Mayo Classic, North Carolina, South Carolina, battle for the Carolinas. Which one it is, blah, blah, blah. You see here that Drake May is definitively the best player on the field, and you saw that. Now, he still had 2 interceptions in this game, but check this out. So you see 269 passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, whereas Spencer Rattler, 350 passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But you see the physicality up front. The North Carolina Tar Heels had 39 carries, 168 rushing, 4.3 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns on the ground, whereas the South Carolina Gamecocks had 31 carries, -2, I know these are sacks, -2 yards, -0.1 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Thinking about that, that means that North Carolina had a plus 170 rushing advantage over North Carolina, 168 to -2. So I know that most of those are sacks, but still, the running back here, DeCarrion Joyner, 12 carries, 23 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. That is not very well. Meanwhile, British Brooks, 15, 103, and 6.9. You could see that the SEC defense was completely outmatched in this game against Drake May and a good North Carolina team. Again, he mentioned there that North Carolina might be invited later on, but again, that's conference realignment stuff, and that's not for right now. But again, that was one of the losses that they had to the ACC, and the other ones aren't much better. And these ones right here, these next three losses we're going to go over, really highlight the fact that these SEC defenses, they're missing something that they've usually had in previous seasons. This one was the Camping World Kickoff, and this was last week. So we see here the fact that 21 points in the fourth quarter. Florida State, coming into that game, won 45-24. Jaden Daniels did a pretty good game. 22 for 37, 346, one touchdown, one pick. They had 113 yards on the ground. But then come over here and check this out. Again, we see the fact that the rushing stats were roughly the same, but Jordan Travis, 340 passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, obviously, but a 93.8 QBR. Remember that 100 is the max you can get on that. So, again, that's first example. LSU has always had its DBU, whatever it is, the pinnacle of defense was always LSU as when I was growing up. But Florida State went and played them in that neutral site game and absolutely torched them through the air. Like I said, this was the first of one of those examples of an SEC defense and especially an SEC secondary getting torched. Here is the next one. This one was a bit goofy. Now, I do know that Texas A&M, they've got a ton of really good quality guys down there. But this one, when you saw this one, you're like, oh my God, is the U back? They've got a lot of things that are going for them. Mario Cristobal down there doing a good job, trying his best to kind of implement the old Miami passing attacks. And the old Miami passing attacks looked exactly like this. Tyler Van Dyke, 21 for 30, 374, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 94.6 QBR. Again, there's rushing stats, 22 for 77, who cares? Texas A&M had 29 for 97. This is a passing game. Connor Wiseman, 336 passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Meanwhile, Tyler Van Dyke, 375, 5 touchdowns against an SEC defense. Still, I know we talk trash about Texas A&M, but they have so many of those top fly guys from that top overall recruiting class still on the team. Only a couple of them transferred away. So this is going up against a lot of really good freshmen and sophomores and good solid players. But man, the game at University of Miami, 48 points, 375 through the air, 5 TDs. Not a great look for, again, an SEC defense. And to cap it all off, the real shocker here was the Alabama Crimson Tide hosting the Texas Longhorns. Now remember last season, 2019, 22-19, not 2019, the year 22 Alabama, 19 Texas Longhorns. They were doing really well. We saw the fact that Quinn Ewers last year had 100 yards passing in the first quarter. They were on fire. He gets knocked out of the game. Eventually, Alabama comes back and wins that game. This one's a little bit different. This one was turned a little bit of a passing off. So you come out here and check out the rushing stats. So what is that? 37-105, 2.8 for Texas, 37-107, 3.1 for Alabama. So eventually you see the fact that both rush defenses were able to impose their will a little bit. The quarterbacks have to come back there and set the stage. We see that the quarterback battle again. Jalen Milroe, 14 for 27, a little above 50%, 255, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 65.7 QBR, 50 is average. That's not bad. But it's not going to help you win when Quinn Ewers, 24 for 38, a little around 60%, 349 passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions through the air, 89.4 QBR. Again, like I said before, we saw the fact that 350, something like that for Jordan Travis for Florida State. We saw 375 for Tyler Van Dyke for Miami, and now we're seeing 350 through the air. These are some of the best teams and most talent. That's LSU, South Carolina, Florida State, Alabama, all these defenses getting torched on the air, on the ground, whatever it is, to a lot of teams that aren't in the conference. This is not the good look that you usually see from the SEC and those defenses and athletes that they have. And remember here, this is this next weekend. For the most part, non-conference schedules are done. There's a couple of them late in the season. I know we still have SEC crap week, which I always rail against them. We have that later on this season. But we see this here. Kansas State Wildcats go at the Missouri Tigers. Kansas State is favored. They're 68.7% percent match favorite for this game. So it looks, and I think they're a -4 favorite in terms of, the spread for the game. So again, this is another example. Missouri is at least 2-0. That's a solid matchup, but they do play another conference. Are you going to trade a win with, again, you've got a couple of trades with the ACC. You see one there with the Big 12. I know Texas will be in the SEC next season, but currently that's a Big 12 win. Do the Big 12 get another win in this game? We don't know, man. Now, I know I'm kind of railing on the SEC a little bit here because this is just so shocking for me. Again, this is the team, this is the conference that has produced so many national championships in these last couple of years. You figure they're going to have another one, and they've got a lot of losses from a lot of teams. LSU lost, Alabama lost, Texas A&M lost, South Carolina lost, Florida lost. I know that nobody's not really surprised about the Florida loss, but check this out. Georgia, they're going to be just fine. It's nearly an ace in a hole for the national championship. I do think that this is interesting, though. The SEC might only get one playoff participant this year, which will be a little shocking We typically seen 2, something like that, but we're probably only going to get 1 this year because of how many losses throughout the rest of the league, and the league will still cannibalize itself a little bit. But Georgia, they still have, I mean, think about this year. South Carolina at home, I think they'll be fine there. UAB at home, at Auburn. Auburn just struggle at Cal. So we'll see what they do there. Kentucky, then at Vanderbilt. Florida in a neutral site game. Mizzou. I talked about this before. This 8-day stretch here. Home against Ole Miss. At Tennessee. Those will be interesting. I suspect they will go 2-0 in those games. And then our Georgia Tech there was an ACC matchup, but not exactly an ACC power here. So the SEC, off to a rough start here. Like I said, I think they'll still be fine for the national championship. They should be the favorite to get another national championship. But this is not the same as it was in previous years. For those of you who don't remember history, history is always changing. So as much as you might say, oh yeah, well, the SEC is going to remain dominant for years and years to come. Think about it right now. They are trading a lot of wins with a lot of different conferences. Tons with the ACC. We sent one to Texas. I know Texas is a Big 12 team right now. We see the fact that Missouri plays Kansas State pretty quick here. They're not favored in the game. Meaning Missouri, meaning they could trade a win with the Big 12. And then we also see the fact that Utah beat Florida. There's a lot of SEC losses to interconference wise. Do I think they're going to be fine in terms of national championship? Georgia's going to walk to 12-0. I think they're going to be okay there. But SEC 2023, probably only going to get 1 team in the CFP this season. Again, just the way it is. Like I said, probably going to be Georgia, but it's not as dominant as you would think, especially those defenses, man. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. Let me know what you think about this. Again, I think the SEC is going to be just fine for the national championship. They still got Georgia, but could we see like a cycling a little bit here? I'm not trying to say that Alabama's lost it. I am trying to say, though, has everybody else caught up? What's going on there with the rest of college football? You guys get in the comments and let me know. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.